The rain tapped gently against the window as Sierra sat quietly on the edge of her bed, staring into the gray morning light. The world outside seemed so calm, so normal, but her heart carried the weight of everything that had happened. The soft hum of a car rolling by and the distant whistle of the wind added to the stillness of the moment. She wrapped her arms around her knees, trying to ground herself, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. Downstairs, she heard the faint clink of a coffee mug, followed by the sound of water running. She knew it was Ethan. He always woke up early, especially after nights when sleep didn't come easily. The sound of him moving through the kitchen brought a warmth she hadn't expected. He was here. He was home. And right now, that was all that mattered. Sierra let out a slow breath and forced herself to stand. She moved toward the stairs, her fingers trailing along the banister as she descended. The smell of coffee greeted her first, followed by the sight of Ethan standing at the counter, his back to her. She paused, watching him for a moment. Something about this morning felt different. Sierra's peaceful morning shattered with the sound of her phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. Ethan glanced at it, his brow furrowing as he picked it up and read the screen. "It's for you," he said, his voice tight. Sierra took the phone hesitantly, her pulse quickening when she saw the unknown number. "Hello?" she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. A low, gruff voice responded, the kind that instantly made her stomach twist. "Miss Carter, we need to talk." "Now." Sierra froze. It wasn't just the words, but the tone, a mix of authority and urgency. "Who is this?" she managed, gripping the phone tighter. The voice didn't answer directly. Instead, it said, "You're in danger. Meet me at the old diner on 5th in 30 minutes. Come alone." And just like that, the line went dead. Ethan was by her side immediately, his concern obvious. "Who was it?" he asked. But Sierra could barely find the words. Her mind raced. What kind of danger? Why her? She met Ethan's gaze, the questions swirling in her head mirrored in his eyes. "I don't know," she whispered finally, "but I think I have to go." "Not alone," Ethan said firmly, already grabbing his jacket. "No," Sierra said, shaking her head. "They said to come alone? If I don't..." She couldn't finish the thought. The fear in her voice was enough. Ethan stared at her, his jaw tightening. "Then I'll follow. Stay far enough back. But I'm not letting you do this alone." Sierra hesitated but nodded, knowing there was no arguing with him. Together, they left the house, stepping into the unknown. Sierra's car engine roared to life as she and Ethan drove through the dimly lit streets. The old diner on 5th wasn't far, but every passing second felt like an eternity. Her hands tightened on the wheel, her knuckles pale against the dark leather. The air inside the car was heavy with unspoken fear. "You don't have to do this," Ethan said softly, his voice cutting through the silence. Sierra kept her eyes on the road. "I don't have a choice. Whoever this is, they know something about me." "What if it's important?" Ethan leaned back, his jaw clenched. "Just be careful. Don't let them get too close." As they pulled up to the diner, the building loomed like a ghost from another time, its flickering neon sign casting eerie shadows on the cracked pavement. Sierra parked and took a deep breath. "Wait here," she said, her voice firmer than she felt. Ethan nodded reluctantly, watching her every move as she stepped out of the car. The cold night air bit at her skin as she approached the entrance, her heart pounding so loudly she thought it might drown out everything else. Inside, the diner was nearly empty, save for a man sitting in the far corner. He wore a dark coat and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. Sierra hesitated at the door, every instinct screaming at her to run, but she forced herself forward. "You came," the man said as she approached, his voice instantly recognizable from the call. "Who are you? What do you want?" Sierra demanded, her tone sharp despite her trembling hands. The man leaned forward, his face still partially obscured. "You're in danger, Miss Carter. And if you don't act fast, the people you care about will be, too." Sierra's breath caught. "What are you talking about? Who's after me?" "There's no time to explain," the man replied, his urgency undeniable. He slid a small envelope across the table toward her. "Take this and follow the instructions. If you don't, you'll regret it." Before she could ask more, he stood abruptly and walked out, disappearing into the shadows of the night. Sierra stared at the envelope, her mind racing. Outside, Ethan was already stepping out of the car, his concern clear. "What happened?" he asked, his eyes narrowing at the envelope in her hand. "I don't know yet," Sierra admitted, "but I think we're about to find out." Sierra unfolded the envelope with trembling fingers, her heart hammering in her chest. Inside was a single sheet of paper, its surface covered in jagged handwriting. The message was cryptic but chilling. "Trust no one. Your every move is being watched. Meet me at the old pier at midnight." Ethan leaned over her shoulder, his brow furrowed as he read the note. "This is insane," he muttered. "You're not seriously going, are you?" Sierra hesitated, her mind racing. Every fiber of her being screamed to burn the note and forget this ever happened. But deep down, she knew she couldn't ignore it. Whoever this was, they knew too much things no one else could possibly know. I have to, she said quietly, folding the paper back into the envelope. If I don't, we'll never find out the truth. Ethan shook his head. This is a trap, Sierra. Whoever this is, they're playing with you. Maybe, she admitted. But what if they're not? What if they're the only chance we have to get answers? Midnight came too quickly. The old pier stretched out over the dark, churning waters, its wooden planks creaking under Sierra's cautious footsteps. Ethan stayed back in the car, his hands gripping the steering wheel like a lifeline. The pier was eerily quiet, save for the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore. Sierra scanned the shadows, her heart in her throat. Suddenly, a figure emerged, stepping into the faint moonlight. It was the same man from the diner. You came, he said, his voice steady but low. Start talking, Sierra demanded, her fists clenched at her sides. What do you want from me? The man's eyes narrowed. It's not about what I want. It's about what's coming, and you're the only one who can stop it. Sierra's hands tightened around the steering wheel as she and Ethan sped away from the pier. The man's cryptic words replayed in her head like a broken record. You're the only one who can stop it. What did that even mean? How could she stop something she didn't understand? The car jolted as Ethan swerved to avoid a pothole. Sierra, he said sharply, breaking the tense silence. That guy, do you trust him? Because I sure don't. I don't know, she admitted, her voice shaky. But what choice do we have? He knew things, Ethan. Things he shouldn't know. Before Ethan could respond, a pair of headlights appeared in the rearview mirror, growing brighter and brighter. Sierra, Ethan said, his voice rising with alarm. We've got company. Sierra glanced back, her stomach dropping. A black SUV was tailing them, its engine roaring as it closed the gap. Step on it, Ethan shouted. She pressed the gas pedal to the floor, the car lurching forward. The SUV kept pace, its grille practically kissing their bumper. Adrenaline surged through Sierra's veins as she swerved down a side street, tires screeching against the pavement. The SUV followed, relentless. Ethan dug through the glove compartment, pulling out a flashlight. What are you doing? Sierra yelled, her eyes darting between the road and the mirror. Improvising, he shouted back. Rolling down the window, he leaned out and shined the blinding beam into the SUV's windshield. The pursuing vehicle swerved, momentarily losing ground. Nice move, Sierra said, her voice tight with both fear and admiration. But the momentary relief was short-lived. A loud pop shattered the night as a bullet punched through the back window, sending glass flying. They're shooting at us, Ethan shouted, ducking low. Sierra's mind raced. Hold on, she said, yanking the wheel hard to the right. The car skidded into a narrow alleyway, barely fitting between the buildings. The SUV tried to follow but slammed into the walls, stuck. Breathing hard, Sierra didn't stop to celebrate. They won't be stuck for long, she said, her voice steely. We need to figure out what they want and fast. Sierra and Ethan burst through the abandoned warehouse doors, their footsteps echoing off the cold, steel walls. The dim glow of a single light bulb swayed from above, casting eerie shadows. In the center of the room stood the man they had been chasing, the mastermind behind the chaos. His calm demeanor was unnerving, his hands clasped behind his back as if he'd been expecting them all along. You've come far, the man said, his voice low and calculated. But this ends here. Sierra stepped forward, her fists clenched. Why are you doing this? What do you want from us? The man smirked, pulling out a small device with a blinking red light. It's not about you. It's about sending a message. Sacrifice is the only way to true control. Ethan's eyes widened as he spotted the countdown timer on the device. He's going to blow this place up, he hissed. Sierra's mind raced. She spotted a steel pipe lying on the ground and seized it. Not on my watch, she muttered, charging forward. The man dodged her first swing, but Ethan tackled him from behind, sending the device skidding across the floor. Sierra dove for it, her fingers trembling as she studied the buttons. The timer was down to 10 seconds. The warehouse was eerily silent as the danger faded. Sierra sat on the cold floor, catching her breath, the deactivated device still in her hands. Ethan leaned against the wall, his face smeared with dirt and relief. We did it, Ethan said, his voice hoarse. Sierra looked at him, her lips curving into a faint smile. Barely. The authorities arrived moments later, securing the mastermind and ensuring the threat was neutralized. As Sierra and Ethan stepped out into the fresh air, the morning sun breaking over the horizon, they felt a weight lift from their shoulders. What now? Ethan asked, glancing at her. Sierra stared into the distance, her expression calm but determined. We rebuild. We move forward. Walking away from the chaos, they knew life wouldn't be the same. But for the first time in a long time, They felt hope, and that was a start.